Namatu Ratanatayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Zim, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. Hello, good evening everyone. So today is Sunday the 28th June 2020. This is Achan Sujan again on live with you all. So this is a regular Dhamma talk and reflection on the different aspects of the Buddhism and our day-to-day life experiences from my view. So welcome and thank you everyone for following and listening locally and internationally. So far I see Andrew from London, Lena from Dormock, Colin from Aberdeen, Margaret from Kingswell, Manish from London, Karina from Aberdeen, and everyone. So thank you for listening. Before going into the topic, just the announcement that tomorrow we are going to have a Zoom Mindfulness Mondays, which normally used to have in a health village. And those who have sent the email, now I hope you have got the Zoom accounts, and I have made in such a way that you don't need a password. You just need to join in, and that will start at 12:30. So it is a tester, so we'll see how it works. And thank you everyone. And as I said, I think on a Friday night I gave a few questions that I was asked by different members from different places, and some of them I covered and others didn't. And particularly the question that I was asked to speak on politics, I was hesitant to speak, but I thought that since my friend from Nepal requested me to speak on the politics, then I thought that tonight I will speak on the politics, on politics in a Buddhist perspectives. So actually I also was thinking that I will speak on the so-called contemplation on a death tonight, but it's going to be too serious, so maybe other day. So politics, it is not a safe subject to speak, I would say, as a monk, because when you set up a charity, first question you are asked that you will not engage in political views, not going into any political biasness. So the politics, Buddhist politics, frankly speaking, in order to understand Buddhist politics, we have to see the purpose and the teachings of the Buddha. Buddha's teachings is basically getting rid of greed, hatred, and delusion, whereas politics is more on greed and more on a hatred and more on a delusional, utopian view, which against with the teachings of the Buddha. That utopian concept, there is no such things as a utopian, that which is unchanged, or something will be perfect in this changing world. So from the beginning it's already wrong in terms of the politics, because politics is all about greediness to get the power, greediness to get a kind of a wealth, and when you lose the election, you generate hate, and then most of the time we listen the politicians offerings or promises all on majority are based on lies. So although everything is perfect before the elections, but later what happens is they cannot do, and they cannot offer on the promises that they have given. So it's quite a difficult subject, and also people would say that the politics is a dirty business, and yet we are part of it. We have to play this part in the politics too. We cannot ignore, and we cannot say I am not interested, and we cannot disregard the politics too. So we do have to engage in it, and meantime we have to be mindful of how much we are engaging in that politics. So when we look at the Buddhist politics, we have to see in two forms. One during the time of the Buddha and what the Buddha said, and the second is what after Buddha's time, and how the politics has developed. And first, when we look at the politics, it's I remember when I was reading Shakespeare's plays, one of the plays, and Shakespeare said that politicians cheat even the God, and I think he's right. I remember a few years in 2005, I was attending one of the ceremonies in Wolverhampton, and there were some politicians in that ceremony, and we were talking about something, the politics ups and downs during that time, and then I mentioned this Shakespeare's words that I read that this Shakespeare said politicians cheat even the gods, but despite of that, we still have to deal with these politicians, like that. And then those politicians attended in that ceremony wasn't happy. So anyway, so when we look at the Buddha's during the Buddha's time of the politics, first we have to refer the discourses, and that discourse famously used is the discourse called the Aganya Sutta, and that's again a beginning of the world as well, and how the caste system developed. So that's why when you look at the Aganya Sutta, what we find that Aganya Sutta simply saying that the leaders are government or a group of people or the organization is developed is a matter of serving people for the security, giving a security to the people, and in giving the security to the citizens will pay for them for their work. So it was a matter of serving the citizens, whereas now politics has become the matter of a power rather than matter of a service. So which is again completely two different stories now. So at the beginning I mentioned that the Buddhism, its purpose is to get rid of greed, hatred and delusion, whereas the politics is based on greed, hatred and delusion. And the second, when we look at the Aganya Sutta, the beginning of Aganya Sutta is basically it's a matter of serving the community and how we can keep the community safe and how we can keep the community prosperous and harmony. And that's how the organization was formed. governing organization was formed, and in that governing organization they chose a leader, and he became sort of the king. So that's why during that time, in terms of the Buddhist concept, government or the leaders in politics should be representing the community, who will serve the community for the good harmony and prosperity. But whereas now we can see that it's more of about the power gain, and also about the other fame and other powers, so they can influence in different stories, different issues. Further on, Buddha also mentioned so many times in different places that winner will be happy, loser will be angry, and that we can see a lot. And we, although we call it democratic countries, or we believe in a democracy, and despite of that, whenever election takes place, when other party wins, the loser party always demonstrate or always against with the winning party. So in a way, we respect the democracy, but when election comes and the opposition party wins, and then we claim that that's not the legitimate, it's not legitimate, or that's not the right, and we don't want them to be. So whereas in the same group, if the same party, if their party wins, then again we celebrate. So this is again what we need to be very careful and very mindful on, that that if we really believe in a democracy, and if we really understand the democracy, then we should be able to respect the outcome after the election, and let this winning party work at least for 4 years. Let's see how much they can do. It's not like once they win and then immediately go onto the street and marching, take this government down. So basically, the democracy that the people are saying in this term would be like, my choice should be, that is the democracy. And that's against what the Buddha's teachings are. Like, Buddha's teachings are like, should be democratic, and you have to respect. Once you have chosen, it's chosen. For 4 years, let this governing party work on that, and that's how it should be. And again, when I look at the Buddha's own life. Although we believe that Buddha's father was the king, in fact he wasn't the king but the leader of this republican governing body that time. And on the basis of that, I think Buddha has developed the governing organization even to the Sangha members, that there is no so-called leader who will, like the top-down power, but it's like a republican way of dealing in the Sangha community. And that's the reason I think during the time of the Buddha highly praised the Vajjin's governing body during that time compared to other kingship, governing by the kings or the great leaders at that time. So Vajjins, basically the kingdom, the country called Vajji. So Vajjins were governing by the republican way, and they had 7 very good ways to deal with that. And Buddha referred that very highly, and I would like to read it out, all the 7 leadings, or so-called like a governing body should have these 7 qualities in order to have the good practicing and for the prosperity and good harmony in governing body. So that's the first one, is known as meeting often and regularly So that's the first one. So meeting often and regularly, this needs to be done in the governing body. And when we are meeting again, so regularly conferring on community affairs and projects, which are to be shouldered by each person according to his level. So basically everyone is in the meeting and have a say on one project without missing. And the second is meeting together, dispersing together and doing together what needs to be done together. So here again, a meeting together and dispersing together. So like you meeting together in the same time. It's not like meeting is going to start at 9 o'clock and you're coming 9:30 or 10 o'clock just to close up. In that way also will not be successful. And when even dispersing, again, it needs to be in the same time. Let's say 5 o'clock, then everyone be there until the 5 o'clock. And no one has missed any topics of the discussion. Right? So that's the second. And then neither instituting laws and regulations not communally agreed upon simply out of convenience or personal preference, no denigrating or abolishing things already instituted, upholding the main provisions established as the Constitution. So basically, whatever rules been already introduced, we will be, basically you are supporting and practicing in accordance with it. And then no rules and regulations will be are introduced for purely whether it is a political benefit, a political party benefit, or the individual convenience. And this is, I think, we need to be, I think we can see around the world that's happening, particularly in Asian countries, that we can see that each political parties are making their own rules to support their political parties. Every 4 years, or maybe less than 4 years, when the party changes, then basically the party will be revising the rules and regulations in favor of their party, or in favor, so they can go on getting more powers later on. So that needs to be carefully, thoughtfully think about it, and you shouldn't be doing it. And then the fourth, honoring and respecting the elders long in experience, giving weight to their words. Basically, respecting the elders and listening their advices. So that's the fourth one. And honoring and respecting women, protecting them from abuse and ill treatment. So this is what the Buddha mentioned 2,600 years ago, that probably he was the first person to give freedom and protection for the woman in the history of woman freedom. And so he basically gave this as like honoring and respecting the woman and giving her protection. And that's the reason why when one become a nun, nuns have got the more rules to follow, simply for the protections of their own safety, and monks has a duties to protect their welfare as well, and respecting their status. So I have come across with the questions why nuns have to follow so many rules. Basically, that is for their own safeguard, and that's why they have more rules. And then honoring and revering the shrines, holy place, and national monuments, which are memorial arousing virtue and central of a community spirits. And here again, giving like a spiritual comfort for the people, and also a refuge. Like the shrines are the place where people will go take a refuge and feeling a calm and feeling relaxed. In the meantime, there are monuments that has a very strong relationship with their past, so it needs to be honored and venerated. And in the meantime, organizing a rightful protection, support, and a sanctuary to the religious people and the religious monks or the priests. and maintaining their practice. So that basically, in order to keep the morality in place in the society, when morality is in the place in the society, then that governing body basically will be successful, and the society become harmonious and prosperous. And once the governing body has regularly checking these 7 rules and then working with that, Buddha simply suggests that the story goes on, and that as long as Vajjayins are practicing in accordance with these 7 rules, then no one can defeat the Vajjayins' country. So, and that is the prosperity and a safeguard and a stronghold, Buddha said. And that's sort of these are the qualities, or these are the principles one government has to follow, one government has to implement in order to have a great future of the country. And as a government, according to Buddhism, what has to develop is that one has to know how to give the community in a service. It's not like you become a politician and you give so many dreams and so many hopes, and once you got onto the power, you forget all. So that's why when someone comes to ask for the advice that which party I should vote, then my suggestion will be, go back and read or see their work and their past, whether have they implemented or have they offered what they promised before in the last election. If their data suggest that they are trying their hard to implement their promises or offering their promises, then rather than thinking of the party, rather than thinking of the person, think of their work, think of their promises, that whether they are providing as they wish, as they promise or not. So that is checking from what they have to offer and what they are offering. And with that, not only that offering, but also we have to check their moral values, their moral status, and whether they are maintaining a good conduct or not. And in terms of the good conduct, again, whether he is doing physically good, wholesome deeds or not. When he speaks, again, is he speaking in terms of giving a comfort and encouragement or not? And is he in line with the rules and regulation or not? And then he also work selflessly towards the benefit of the community, and working honestly and deporting himself with a gentleness and congeniality. So that is also a quality that a leader or a government should have. And rejecting any indulgence of austerity towards the community, and adhering to results and no anger whatsoever, and overcoming difficulties with a great patience. So this is also and also working with the righteousness. So these are some of the principles that one has to follow in order to have a good governance and a good good country or good politics. So that's why it's very difficult to understand that these politicians, although we are living in a democratic country or democratic world, but the moral practice are very low, and they are more onto the power hunger rather than the servicing. As I mentioned at the beginning, according to Buddhism, the politicians or the government should be is a matter of a serving rather than the power hunger or power. And nowadays, basically, because of looking for the power and the prosperity of individual or the one party, all the morals, I would say, just going down. But having said that, doesn't mean that there are not good. There are some good politicians too who are trying their best, and I do believe that there are good young politicians who had a great thoughts for the good of the country and good of the community, and yet once they have gone into the system, they have to fight with the system, and gradually the morals and their ethical values and their things will gradually diminish, and they will also join with the same herd that been in the past. So that's a sad thing, but despite of that, they are also working their hard work towards some changes to bring so that the community will be living in a harmony and a peace. So regardless of this lack of morals, there are some, I believe, working hard to get it. In terms of the ways of governing, there are three types of the governings that the Buddha introduced. One is called Attadhipatai, which means that holding which means Attadhipatai means a supremacy of individuals' views. Supremacy of own self means it's like a dictatorship. When there is a dictatorship, then always that is not the right for the prosperity of the country. And there is a second, it's called Lokadhipataya, which means supremacy of the world view, or world of the world, basically giving a power to the citizens in a way that in favor of one group rather than what it needs to be. So like a leader who listens one group of people and then working to please one group of people, then that also kind of a government is not the right one. And the third one is called a Dhammadhipataya, which is the supremacy of the Dhamma. In the supremacy of the Dhamma, basically the government as well as the leaders and as well as all the apparatus, those who are working in the governing body, they are practicing in accordance with the Dhamma, in accordance with the righteousness. So those who are following the right and have a great moral values, and if they have those moral values, and definitely that brings the prosperity of the country. And there is one discourse Buddha said that is called Adhammika Sutta in Anguttara Nikaya. He said that if a leader is immoral and unrighteousness, those who are working under him also become unrighteousness and immoral. When they are working for him is unmoral, and then it goes down to the assistant, and then they also become immoral, and the people become immoral, citizens become immoral and unrighteousness, and there will be a chaos. And with that chaos, that extends into the suns and the moons and the stars and even the celestial beings and even the ecosystem. And with that change, and everything becomes so unnatural, and that's how the whole system, not only the human system but also the world system, become in trouble. And that's why I think lack of the moralities in the politics at this time, people are facing so many troubles in whether it is environmental or whether it is politicals or international relationship, and so many things. And that's why I think UN has announced so-called Sustainable Development Project within the 2030 with the 17 SDG programs. Hopefully they will be able to attain it. And in opposite, in that discourse, Buddha said that if the leader is righteousness and everything comes to the righteousness, then everybody will follow in accordance with the righteousness and become a moral and a practicing morality. And with that, everything comes into the normal, and the whole system will comes down comes or functions properly, naturally, and not only the human or the society become calm and harmony, but also the whole nature and whole system transform into the peaceful place to live in. So I hope that this gives you some background about Buddhism and politics, and if we are following this, what we can see there is no such things that we have the concept of utopians, that according to Buddhism there is no such things. There's always change. We have to learn from it. And at the end, I would like to say that Buddhism teaches us to give away greed, hatred and delusion, but whereas politics is based on greed, hatred and delusion, and whether we like it or not, we are still part of this politics. We need to be very careful and how to deal with that. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you shortly for the chanting and guided meditation. Thank you.